good morning to the Honorable Johnny Briceño, Prime Minister of Belize, his members, ministers of state and members, to the leader of the opposition, his members. With your guidance, may all our endeavors tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, the increase of industry, sovereignty, and useful knowledge. We pray, O God of mercy, for all of us that we may be blessed in knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, please admit us, dear Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Divine providence, O thou forgiving God, forgive the sins of our loving mothers and grandmothers, and pardon their shortcomings. Cast upon them both the glance of thy gracious providence, and enable them to gain admittance into thy kingdom. O God, from the earliest days of our lives, our dear mothers educated and nurtured us, yet we did not recompense her for her toil and labors. Do thou reward her by granting her eternal life and making her exalted in thy kingdom. I beg of thee to wash away our sins as befitted thy lordship, and to forgive us, our parents, and those in thy estimation have entered the abode of thy law in a manner which is worthy of thy transcendent sovereignty and well-beseemeth the glory of thy celestial power. O Lord, immerse the father and mother in all our homes in the ocean of thy forgiveness, and purge and sanctify our parents from every sin and transgressions. Grant them thy forgiveness and mercy, and bestow upon them thy gracious pardon. Thou verily art the pardoner, the ever forgiving, the bestower of abundant grace. Verily, thou art the protector, the bestower, and the one who forgives the most grievous of sins. Amen.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Good morning, honorable members and members in the galleries. I would like to welcome the students from Escuela Secundaria Técnica Mexico from the Corozal district who are in the galleries today. Special thanks especially to the student, Ms. Kaylee Keme, student member from the Leadership Club, who offered the prayer this morning. Welcome as well to students and teachers from Stella Maris, representatives from Special Olympics, students from visually impaired community, persons in wheelchairs, parents and advocates. Welcome. I also see my good friend Marshall Nunes in the galleries. I wish to inform you all that Madam Speaker is presently on unofficial parliamentary matters. She's out of the country. So I will be sitting in the chair for today. I ask that you try your best to stick to the rules so that we have a fruitful meeting. Since this is the first meeting after the passing of our colleague, the late Honorable Michael Espat, former member for Toledo East, I would like to ask that we all rise for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Statement by Minister.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics, and E-Governance.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister, and colleagues. A warm welcome to all of our visitors in the gallery, and good morning to all of our citizens across the country and especially in Kayonert. Mr. Speaker, as we reflect on the electricity sector in the past couple of months, we can see how climate change is affecting our everyday lives. On April 4, 2024, the Philip Wolfson Airport recorded a new record high temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Last week, there was also a new record high of electricity demand of 127 megawatts, caused by the increased use of ACs and fans to deal with the insufferable heat. And, Mr. Speaker, the electricity demand is expected to grow to 135 megawatts in June, levels never before seen in our country. This prolonged heat wave and period of drought has brought the levels of the reservoirs of our hydroelectric facilities to critical low levels. These events reinforce the considerations that went into the new energy policy that was approved in November last year. The policy has a clear vision of how we will take action and raise our renewable energy penetration from 53% to 75% by 2030, and by adding over 160 megawatts of new generation to the grid. This increase in generation will meet our future demands, which is projected to be at 165 megawatts based on current trends. These actions will diversify our generation sources and make Belize less vulnerable to changing climatic conditions. This government, Mr. Speaker, has taken action to meet the ever-increasing load on the electricity grid resulting from unprecedented economic growth. This government has approved new RFP regulations so that all bidders, both national and international, have equal opportunity to construct new generation plants in Belize. We have approved new regulations to open the market to individual customers so that they now have the opportunity to produce their own electricity and sell the excess into the national grid. Mr. Speaker, a couple of weeks ago, I traveled with the Honorable Prime Minister to Cancun, where we met with the Mexican President to discuss the supply of electricity from CFE to Belize. Mexico is committed to assisting us, and we have the assurance that after the 2nd of June 2024, the supply from CFE will stabilize. And in addition, we have a commitment to extend the supply from CFE by 25 megawatts more. Mr. Speaker, it is worthy to note that Mexico will be adding about 120 gigawatts of new generation capacity, and this will further stabilize the supply to Belize. But we are not stopping at this. As a responsible government, we understand the need for Belize to attain energy independence and energy security. In this regard, we have been working with the PUC and BL to add additional generation sources to our energy mix. In the immediate term, we will meet energy demands with the newly commissioned gas turbine at Westlake and the soon-to-be commissioned gas turbine in San Pedro by mid-June. In the short term, we are working with the World Bank to install 40 megawatts of battery, which we expect to be operational by 2025. We are also fast-tracking the work with Saudi Arabia to install 60 megawatts of solar, which is scheduled to be operational by the first quarter of 2026. The Millennium Challenge Corporation is assisting Belize with our medium-term plans by creating the investment environment to invite an additional 50 megawatts of solar and 20 megawatts of battery from the private sector, and is assisting us in conducting the necessary analysis to reinforce our grid and prepare our grid to receive these new technologies and weather the new storms as a result of climate change. We anticipate that the persistent load shedding we have been experiencing will abate once the gas turbine in San Pedro is commissioned and the supply from CFE stabilizes in June. Mr. Speaker, in these 3 years, this government has done what was not done in the previous 13 years. We have positioned the energy sector to grow and to become more independent and more secure with the introduction of battery storage and solar power in our energy mix. Thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of the Blue Economy and Disaster Risk Management.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning and welcome to everyone, the students from Escuela Secundaria Mexico and from Stella Maris and everyone else. Welcome and thanks. It's an honor to have you here. Mr. Speaker, this morning before I rise to speak on issues and matters concerning my Ministry of the Disaster Risk Management in particular, please allow me, beg your indulgence in sharing something here very important that I'll be speaking about the fires. My intervention is about the fires occurring in Punta Gorda and the Cayo district. It's very sad, but I want to put in something that was of good news that happens here and I want to share in Belize Rural South, which is my constituency. And of course, I want to acknowledge the beautiful people of Belize Rural South. San Pedro Roman Catholic School, I want to really acknowledge the school team for being champions back-to-back 2023-2024. They are the champions of the Bishop Martin Cup. And I want to acknowledge them, Coach Lozano, Coach Gongora, Captain Daniel Callis, all of these people there. I want to acknowledge them and tell them congratulations. I promised them I won't acknowledge them publicly. Football. Thanks, I appreciate it. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to speak as Minister of Disaster Risk Management. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to share an update about the forest fires that continue to afflict our communities, our livelihoods, and our natural reserve, resulting in losses to our economic prospects. Our initial damage assessment report indicates that over 250 families have been affected by the raging fires, and these numbers continue to rise every day. Several hundred acres of farmland and homes have been destroyed by raging fires. In particular, I was told last night, Mr. Speaker, I want to share the sad news, 2 homes were lost in the Blue Creek area of the Toledo district. Today, there are still communities that remain at risk to these fires. As recently as I said last night, villagers in San Miguel, Silver Creek, and Blue Creek were waging battles with the incessant flames. We have had reports of fires as far as north as Altunja and as far west as in Benqueviejo. In the mountain Pine Ridge, over 10,000 hectares of forest have been affected by wildfires. That is approximately 34,000 acres of land of Pine Ridge. The initial DANA report is showing over $8 million in damages estimated so far. The full extent of the impact on agriculture remains unassessed due to the continuous threat of wildfires and prevailing due to the unrelenting hot and dry weather conditions. Mr. Speaker, the full impact will only be understood when we analyze not only the damages, but also the losses that our people have suffered. This is the situation that we are dealing with today in Belize. Unprecedented fires appearing in parts of our country where there had never been an issue, spreading rapidly in parts of destruction. Mr. Speaker, I happened to visit, apart from the Toledo district, in the villages this past weekend, I visited the village of San Antonio in the Cayo district, along with my colleague, Honorable Balona. And indeed, I must commend the great work of the community, in particular the chairman, also the first department. I want to thank MIDH as well, the BDF and everybody, the collaborative effort, and of course the partners, the private partners, the resorts over there, FCD, all participating. I want to commend this weekend, and I saw the village coming together, providing food and the community effort, and that is what is needed when times of emergency. And I want to commend them for the great work. And indeed, the fire is a threat. Their water lines coming from up north was under threat for supplying a village of almost 5,000. The population is almost 5,000. So the town and the village got together, although some minor damages on the pipes, but because of this great collaborative work, a disaster was avoided. But nonetheless, the fires continue to rage. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that our country is experiencing the impact of climate change, and the effects, of course, are clear to be seen on every highway in the country. Simply put, fires have engulfed Belize, and we are not alone, as we are seeing our neighboring countries struggling with the same problem. Communities and NGO partners across the country have been forced to mobilize to fight these fires that continue to appear at an alarming rate. These continue to cause significant damage to agricultural plots, property, and wildlife. They have had economic, agriculture, ecological livelihood, psychosocial, and biodiversity impacts. Unfortunately, the operations are still active as the risk remains very high. As we speak, communities in Toledo and Cayo, alongside the BDF and other partners and the fields, continuing the battle against an unforgiving enemy which threatens to consume their homes and livelihoods. If this was not bad enough, we're facing a potentially very active hurricane season in just 2 days. Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing here is the perception that we always have, June to November, June to November. Mr. Speaker, we have to shatter that perception. It's no longer June to November. We're dealing with the fires 2 days away, entering to the hurricane season. We must be alert. And NEMO is very much in action right now, even before the hurricane season. Also, Mr. Speaker, while sharing all of this, it is important that we have a government of the day that is very much in tune. And I want to share with you all that for now, we have allocated from the contingency funds of NEMO $500,000 right now to fight for the bushfire relief in down south and Cayo as well. So that's the one that we're doing already to work, along with the Red Cross also providing assistance as well. I want to thank as well the U.S. government as well in assisting as well. So one of the primary functions of the National Meteorological Service also within the Ministry of Blue Economy and Disaster Risk Management is to provide weather and climate information critical to the country's early warning system and to the preservation of life and property. However, as opposed to what many may believe, these hazards are not only related to hurricanes between the month June to November, as I mentioned. As a matter of fact, the National Meteorological Service of Belize has been providing critical weather observations and forecasts during this fire season that assist all the different agencies involving the firefighting effort. This department maintains an impressive network of weather stations across the country, which has been producing real-time data, especially as it relates to the very high temperatures that we have been experiencing during this dry season. Now, this data clearly shows that the spike in forest fires in the south and west coincided with the peak daytime temperatures that occurred around the middle of May. The department as well has an advanced lightning detection system that identifies where lightning strikes are occurring. This is useful in diagnosis the causes of fire and to determine if a particular fire may have been related to lightning strikes, especially in the mountain Pioche area, Mr. Speaker. This is where lightning strikes are occurring. NEMO is responsible for keeping the country a constant state of readiness. The urgency of this is more apparent than ever now. We need to stop thinking that hurricanes are the only hazard of concern. In this day and age, we have to start considering all hazard approach to disaster management. NEMO is now looking at hazards from a risk-based approach. We identify the hazards, assess the likelihoods and vulnerabilities that recommend measures for reducing the risks. Mr. Speaker, I also want to share that we have done an assessment of all the hurricane shelters across the country, and again, NEMO will be allocating $500,000 for the urgent repairs in some of the places already identify as shelters. That's part of what the government is doing today, and I want to share with the nation. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to end by delivering a critical message to all Belizeans, especially as we approach the official start of the 2024 hurricane season. I reiterate and I want to repeat, please, please, listen to official information and stay clear of disinformation that may be spreading, especially on social media, from unofficial sources. As we are aware, during these times there are many so-called experts on social media. So therefore, in conclusion, as Minister responsible for disaster risk management, Mr. Speaker, I urge the Belizean public to listen and adhere to information and recommendations coming from official sources, which include the Met Service and NEMO. With that said, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of bills.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development, Investment, Civil Aviation, and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, like everyone else, I welcome to all the visitors in the gallery. Welcome all you once again this morning, especially to our students and special education. Stella Maris, that plays a very important role in my life. Maybe you may not know, but my wife, before we got married, was teaching at Stella Maris, and actually was living there for about a few years until she went away to study. So we have history. But welcome to all of you. And Madam Marshall, good to see you. Mr. Speaker, this is the Insurance Amendment Bill 2024. I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act number 30 of 2023 to provide for realignment of the terminology and internal cross-references, and to amend the provisions for the disclosure of beneficial owners, and to provide for matters connected herewith or incidental to. Just a short explanation, Mr. Speaker. Last year we had multiple pieces of legislation that was passed to meet the technical anti-money laundering and other compliance requirements. The Insurance Act was one of them. And in trying to meet certain targets, we overlooked certain sections. Remember, we were under pressure from June of last year, and then the last date that everything should have been in place was December. Yet these people came to look to see what we're doing in June, and then said that we were not complying and with the EU. So we wrote a strong letter, and they have pulled back that letter in February. So the point is that we're under a lot of pressure to try to get this done in a short time. So we overlooked certain sections and under the Insurance Act. So now we're here back to the National Assembly to make some adjustments of some sections to make the corrections to this Insurance Amendment Bill. The bill also includes two new provisions. In particular, we are introducing a definition for category. This is necessary as the Insurance Act now provides for the licensing of insurance companies in 4 different categories. The second new item is the amendment to the 3rd schedule to allow for municipal securities with specific caveats as approved securities for purposes of the statutory fund. Again, the insurance companies, they have these large sums of money and they need to find secure investments. And now we have also made if members of the House would remember, we've made some amendments now to allow the municipal bodies to be able to also to provide them to get municipal securities bonds for them to raise funds for the different municipalities. Of course, under the strict supervision of the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank and FIU. So by doing that now, we will be allowing now the insurance companies to be able to buy into these securities as an investment. This bill also has minor amendments in section 17, where the paid-up capital for category 2-4 is not included, something that was inadvertently omitted. Section 41, dealing with the disclosure of the ultimate beneficial ownership, is now being improved. Section 213 is being amended to provide reason for which information should be provided to the supervisor. And lastly, Section 220 is also being amended to provide clarity for the sharing of information with domestic supervisory authorities. Mr. Speaker, this bill was shared with the insurance industry, who have no objections to these amendments. The Insurance Amendment Bill now ensures that the Insurance Act continues to meet international standards and promotes local investments. This bill has the support of the Cabinet, so I seek unanimous support of this Honorable House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Insurance Act, Act number 30 of 2023, to provide for realignment of terminology and internal cross-references, and to amend the provisions for the disclosure of beneficial owners, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Human Development, Families, and Indigenous People Affairs.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Speaker, this is the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill 2024. I rise to introduce a bill for an act to make new and robust provisions for the prevention and protection of persons from sexual harassment, to provide for a right of redress for any person who has been sexually harassed, to repeal the Protection Against Sexual Harassment Act, Chapter 107 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Mr. Speaker, I won't say much on this bill today. We will save it, I believe, for the second reading, only to say that we are being progressive in signaling that in this country we have zero tolerance for sexual harassment and that kind of wrongdoing. Mr. Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of Cabinet, and I would like to ask that the bill be referred to the Public Service, Labor, Industry, and Trade Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Public Service, Labor, Industry, and Trade Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to make new and robust provisions for the prevention and protection of persons from sexual harassment, to provide for a right of redress for any person who has been sexually harassed, to repeal the Protection Against Sexual Harassment Act, Chapter 107 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Human Development, Families, and Indigenous People Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of privileges, interests, rights, benefits, and treatment by persons with disabilities on an equal basis with persons without disabilities, to establish the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, to establish the Disabilities and Equal Opportunities Rights Tribunal, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Mr. Speaker, let me first and foremost say that it is an absolute delight for us to see the gallery packed today with people who are interested parties. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let me begin, Mr. Speaker, by recalling some of the forebears. It has taken many years to get to this point, and we must not forget those on and Miss Eva Middleton. Those who are still with us, but I believe they deserve a round of applause individually, are Miss Joan Samuels of BCVI, Mrs. Joan Musa, Mr. Marshall Nunes, who is with us today. Big up, Marshall. And Mrs. Kathy Esquivel. Please clap. I would also like, Mr. Speaker, to acknowledge several special persons who are with us today. Mr. Carlos Oliva of the Deaf Association, Miss Joycelyn Lopez of the Inspiration Center. Maybe we can hold our applause until the end. Yes. Mr. Rodvern Lino of Special Olympics, Miss Dorette Pascasio of the Orange Walk Town Council responsible for persons with disabilities. Thank you for coming, Dorette. Mr. Kowo from the Inspiration Center, the Rehabilitation Officer. Representatives of the Belize Association for Persons with Diverse Abilities, and also Mr. Tios. We have representation here from the Belize Council for the Visually Impaired, Autism Belize, Stella Maris, Special Education Unit of the Ministry of Education, and Ms. Christy Almeida, Ms. Rose Whitty, the principal of United Evergreen, who is the mother of a special needs child, and Ms. Ishel Pott of the National Council on Aging. Also, I would like to mention that there are members of the hearing impaired and deaf community here with us this morning. And that tall fellow in the purple shirt, he is Mr. Robert Garbott, the sign language interpreter. I would also like to make special mention of Miss Elsa Allen. Hi, Miss Elsa. And Miss Natisha Usher. Please raise your hand, Miss Natisha. Miss Natisha actually had to pull herself up because the wheelchair couldn't come in the assembly this morning. And I can totally identify with Miss Natisha. I had my own struggles because the National Assembly as it is not designed for wheelchair and disabled access. We're going to change that. We must change it. But let me ask that we give everyone that I have mentioned and those that I may not have mentioned a round of applause. Mr. Speaker, it's again, a humble and proud moment. But this bill seeks the upliftment of persons with disabilities, and it furthers Belize's compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We ratified the convention in 2011. Imagine, we are here 13 years later, doing what we need to do. But the fact is, nothing happened before its time, and now is the time to make this happen. We want to put in place appropriate legislative and administrative measures for the implementation of the rights that are recognized in the Convention, and this legislation will directly provide for the safeguarding of the constitutional rights that have been absent in existing legislation, but which are applicable to persons with disabilities. If I am correct, persons living with disabilities represent approximately 15% of our population. Let's think about that. And their ability to enjoy a standard of living comparable to the rest of society is largely governed by the ability of caregivers to make necessary adjustments and sacrifices, often at high costs and to the detriment of employment opportunities, which can prevent socio-economic growth. The state's role in providing resources and services to persons with disabilities is globally recognized as a crucial part of any national social protection system. However, the responsibility must be borne by all levels of society. A robust legislative framework governing the rights of persons with disabilities is required to appropriately allocate responsibilities across main actors in the area and close existing gaps in data collection and resource mobilization. In November of 2021, excuse me, the Disability Desk of our Ministry of Human Development, Families, and Indigenous Peoples Affairs identified the need for national policies for persons with disabilities. Consequently, it was decided that primary legislation promoting the rights and opportunities for such persons living with disabilities was absolutely necessary. A desk review and analysis was done, consultation with colleagues from CARICOM countries, and looking at existing legislation in Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, and Trinidad, and then a first draft of this bill was presented. Then a working group comprising of different stakeholders was developed and reviewed with key stakeholders at a validation session on the 24th of November 2023 after wide, broad, and extensive consultation. Probably, Mr. Speaker, we can boast a little bit today that this bill is probably the most consulted that has ever been brought before this National Assembly. I hope I'm not wrong on that. I also want to say that multi-sectoral consultations helped us to come up with the definition of disability. It helped us to put in the legislation the creation of a registry of persons, so that by creating this and maintaining a registry, persons living with disabilities, and so that the state can efficiently allocate resources and maximize impact. We also propose a national commission for persons with disabilities. The creation of this multi-sectoral national commission mandated to monitor implementation and recommend policy would ensure greater coordination between government and civil society. And this body will also be tasked to report annually on the progress of implementation and compliance with the framework. We also will strengthen access to education, healthcare, and employment. And the bill restates the rights of persons with disabilities to access and confers specific responsibilities of education and health providers and employers to avoid discrimination of persons with disabilities and also to provide equitable access. Last but not least, the Disabilities and Equal Opportunities Tribunal so that the Commission may refer a complaint to the tribunal for resolution with recourse to the High Court if necessary, and delegating judicial powers in this way will promote efficient access to justice without increasing the reliance on already burdened court system. Mr. Speaker, the effective implementation of this framework contained in the draft would require collaboration between government, private sector, and civil society. The potential benefits of increasing access to opportunities and raising the quality of life could increase productivity and could contribute to the reduction of multi-dimensional poverty. We are looking at Sustainable Development Goal number 1, reducing poverty, Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health and well-being, Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality, Sustainable Development Goal 8, Mr. Speaker, decent work and economic growth for all, and Sustainable Development Goal number 10, reduced inequalities. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to recite, I won't sing, but I will recite. If you know it, join me. Hold my hand. I'm powered by inclusion. Am I in your village? Let's stop the discrimination. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. We are all powered by inclusion. Are we in your village? Let's work hand in hand. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Public Service, Labor, Industry, and Trade Committee for examination, consideration, and report. Before we continue, I would like to acknowledge and welcome students from San Jose RC School in the Toledo District.
A bill for an act to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of privileges, interests, rights, benefits, and treatment by persons with disabilities on an equal basis with persons without disabilities, to establish the National Commission of Persons with Disabilities, to establish the Disability and Equal Opportunities Right Tribunal, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Service, Constitutional and Political Reform, and Religious Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and certainly a good morning to all of our superheroes in the gallery. Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 9 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to give effect to the redivision report of the Elections and Boundaries Commission by varying boundaries and removing and creating electoral divisions in Schedule 1 of the Act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Mr. Speaker, I would first like to acknowledge and thank the work of the Elections and Boundaries Commission and the task force established to undertake the preparation of the redivision report. Mr. Speaker, as you would know, claim number 55 of 2019 is still before the court, so I don't want to comment too much. Suffice to say, a consent order was agreed to by the claimants and the defendants in this matter. Part of this agreed-to settlement, Mr. Speaker, is the preparation of a bill to amend the Representation of the People's Act, which has now been introduced in this Honorable House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Public Service, Labor, Industry and Trade Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to amend the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 9 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to give effect to the redivision report of the Elections and Boundaries Commission by varying boundaries and removing and creating electoral division in Schedule 1 of the Act, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics, and E-Governance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to provide for certain exemptions from taxes and duties proposed to be granted to the Southern Deep Port Development Limited by the agreement to provide for the effective implementation of the Southern Deep Port Development Facility and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. If you'd allow me, Mr. Speaker, by way of providing some context, Mr. Speaker, the government of Belize has agreed with the Southern Deep Port Development Limited to realize the construction of the port and marina at the Old Commerce Bight Pier in Dangriga. This development plan was initiated by the developer and will see the investment of some Belize 50 million that will have the effect of developing Dangriga's tourism industry in line with the National Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. This investment will add a component of nautical tourism to southern Belize, providing berthing for small ships, luxury yachts, international water taxis, as well as a full-service marina for residents of Dangriga, the offshore islands, and southern Belize. This also coincides with the National Ports Policy for Belize for the development of a small port at Commerce Bight. In terms of the critical area of employment, approximately 100 Belizeans will be needed in the construction and development phases of this project. Once completed, it will steadily employ approximately 60 Belizeans for port and marina operations, including boat operators, pilots, deckhands, welders, equipment operators, boat repair and maintenance staff, drivers, and security personnel. The spin-off impact on Dangriga's employment is expected to be twice that number employed in the areas of food provision, entertainment, transportation, restaurant services, and other goods and services. Commerce Bight, Mr. Speaker, marks the cornerstone for a tourism boom in Dangriga and will create high demand for tourism personnel such as cooks, musicians, performers, tour guides, drivers, beauticians, boat captains, dive masters, drivers, and all supporting services associated with creating a tourism hub in the culture capital. In summary, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, benefits will include local employment, foreign exchange earnings, improved public infrastructure, cultural promotion and preservation via tourism, the creation of numerous small business opportunities, tax contributions to the government of Belize, improved transportation and logistics for the South, and the socio-economic upliftment of Dangriga. Mr. Speaker, this bill has the recommendation of Cabinet.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an act to provide for certain exemptions from duties and taxes and duties proposed to be granted to the Southern Deep Port Development Limited by the agreement to provide for effective implementation of the Southern Deep Port Development Facility and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Motion relating to the business or sitting of the House.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development, Investment, Civil Aviation, and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I move that at its rising today, the House adjourn at a date to be fixed by the Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
I recognize the Leader of the Opposition, member from Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pleasant good morning to everyone, to my colleagues on the government side, my colleagues here, and to all of our esteemed guests. I join with the Speaker and my other colleagues that have spoken before me in recognizing the students from Escuela, Mexico, San Jose RC, and especially Stella Maris. I'd like to acknowledge a terrific teacher who passed away. Her name is Ruth Ferguson. And I remember about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I was the ambassador of music. And I used to get calls from Miss Ruth to bring the artists to come and perform for the students at Stella Maris. So I have very fond memories of my time at that school. And I commend the government for introducing the disabilities bill so that we can make sure that we are an inclusive society, giving opportunity to all of our people. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to discuss, bring to the nation's attention concerns from the people in Toledo district. I had the pleasure of visiting there over the last couple weeks. And when I was there, the wildfires really reached its peak. And there was a state of emergency declared, Mr. Speaker. But what is happening in Toledo East and Toledo West brings into sharp focus the failures of the Briceño administration, and I would like to present these failures for corrective measure. We need, as a government, as a nation, to become policy oriented. We need, as a government, to anticipate these emergencies and be ready, Mr. Speaker. We know that it is dry season. Traditionally, the farmers across the country are preparing their farm and their land for planting crops. And to have the type of devastation that is taking place, it really is devastating not just to the people in Toledo, Mr. Speaker, but to the economy. And the response is the concern, Mr. Speaker. We cannot prevent natural disasters. We cannot stop wildfires. But we can respond accordingly, Mr. Speaker. And when I visited Trio Village, for example, in Toledo East, about 4 families I had gotten the chance to see. Their homes were completely destroyed. And the response of the government completely inadequate. When these emergencies happen, Mr. Speaker, the government needs to be swift, Mr. Speaker, in making sure that whether it's housing materials. I know that we approved a budget for housing repairs in this fiscal year, Mr. Speaker. If that budget has been depleted, I went on record, Mr. Speaker, saying that I would have looked forward to coming to pass that supplementary, Mr. Speaker, because that is the purpose for supplementaries, things that we cannot anticipate when we pass the budget, Mr. Speaker. But in visiting Trio, there was no solution. I asked, where is Nemo? So Nemo said, and he come back. I asked, has anyone from the Ministry of Housing been here? Has anyone from Human Development been here? And the answer was no, Mr. Speaker. So we have to do better as a government, Mr. Speaker. We really do. I was able to find some resources and give some cement and give zinc and give materials to help these families rebuild their homes and give some monetary support for food, etc. But Mr. Speaker, forgive me. Mr. Speaker, that is not the responsibility of the opposition. We don't have those resources, Mr. Speaker. The resources that I get and my colleagues get are for our constituencies, and those are depleted before we can close and open our eyes, Mr. Speaker. So we urge the government to take swift action in coming to the aid of the people that are losing their homes to the wildfires, as well as the farmers that are losing their crops and losing their livelihood. We urge the government to invest in the emergency infrastructures that are necessary, Mr. Speaker. The people in Toledo that are being ravaged by this wildfire, they don't even have a fire station, Mr. Speaker. People are doing this on their own, Mr. Speaker. We don't even have air assets, Mr. Speaker, that could be deployed to help put out these raging fires, Mr. Speaker. So these are the types of investments that the opposition encourages the government to make, that we will support as an opposition. I wholeheartedly agree with the ideal of cooperation where it makes sense for the benefit of the Belizean people. So I listened to the CEO in the Prime Minister's office, Dr. Osman Martinez, gentleman from Bella Vista. Some people say that from Honduras, but he said that from Bella Vista. And this gentleman said that Toledo is in the dark ages. That's why he in the run. And I agree with him that the people of Toledo have been abandoned by this government, Mr. Speaker. They always talk about 13 years. Let us talk about 4 years that this government has been in office, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot point to one policy
Mr. Speaker,
that they have implemented for the benefit of the people in Toledo, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, please. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition got up to speak about the wildfires, and we could have made an objection since the minister responsible, Nemo, had already explained to this House and to the nation what we are doing as a government. But we allowed him the latitude. But now for him now to go into another topic about Toledo being the dark ages, they were there 13 years and they did nothing. So please, Mr. Speaker, he needs to speak on one matter, which is about the fires.
Okay, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the learned Prime Minister would listen, I am merely reporting, Mr. Speaker, the concerns of the people in Toledo and the concerns of your CEO. He is the one that is saying that you have abandoned the people in Toledo East, and we can see that by the lack of investments. How don't you have a firehouse in Toledo to deal with the people in the villages? Right? We're not just talking about the town, we're talking about the villages. Why should the people in the villages be fighting fires on their own? How is it that you don't invest in the air assets that would be necessary? You had a plan, Belize. You had 13 years, you know, gone through 2 leaders of the opposition. They sit down and wait and hope to one day govern this nation. Governance is serious responsibility. It's not just to take these fancy trips abroad to go and see the Pope and to go here and to go there.
Mr. Speaker.
It is serious business, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know there is a standing order as to interruption.
Mr. Speaker.
And Mr. Speaker, this is the second gentleman standing up to interrupt me, not telling you what standing order they are quoting.
Well, if you give me the opportunity.
What's your point of order?
Standing Order 13, Mr. Speaker, under which he has raised this matter. It is one matter of national importance that he can raise. He's already raised this matter, and it's now for the minister to respond to him, Mr. Speaker. He's now going on a campaign, on trying to, you know, this is not allowed under Standing Order 13, Mr. Speaker. This is not a debate. He has raised a matter, and now the minister responsible can respond to his raising this matter. But, Mr. Speaker, what he can't answer is the fact that the former Prime Minister never visited Toledo, not one time in 13 years. And that's why we are where we are.
Mr. Speaker, if you would allow me, Mr. Speaker.
But
Can you make a ruling, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker,
I think if
you can't tell me how to, you cannot tell me how to raise my
Leader of
issue.
the opposition.
I am putting the issues regarding Toledo East and West and the wildfires before the table. I don't have to do that in a way that is charming to you,
but
that is polite to you.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, but that's exactly the point. He cannot come in here and report on different matters. He can raise one matter of national importance, and that's what the standing order allows, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Go ahead, but just stick to
I am responding, Mr. Speaker. I am merely reporting what is happening on the ground in the state of emergency. I am there. I don't want to hear about the Right Honorable Dean Barrow. I am here now. And yes, you said, oh, the Prime Minister no visit Toledo. I am here now. And I visit, no, you said that. You said that. That is what you said. But the problem with your governance, the reason we don't have air assets, and this is according to Osman, yes, air assets for those particular purpose, Mr. Speaker. And when I'm giving you the report as to the state of emergency and the inadequate response, Mr. Speaker, because I'm not blaming the wildfires on the PUP, as they would do if they were in opposition. They blame everything on Dean Barrow and the UDP. They're in a government and still they blame the UDP, Mr. Speaker. When I quote Dr. Osman Martinez, this is the CEO in the Ministry of Economic Development, which is the Prime Minister's ministry. And he is telling you that the People's United Party have failed in Toledo East, and he lists the examples, Mr. Speaker, and the state of emergency is one of those examples. Where is NEMO? Where is human development, Mr. Speaker? Where is the Ministry of Housing, Mr. Speaker? It should not be left on fundraising. I see that the member from Toledo West put on his Facebook, they're doing a fundraising to help the people. You are the government. I saw that in Toledo West where they're trying to raise resources to help the villagers. Mr. Speaker, this government, Mr. Speaker.
On a point of order.
I am talking about the
on a point of order, Mr. Speaker. Several other members have already raised the irrelevance of the presentation being made by the leader of the opposition. He refuses to listen. He's now being repetitive, and the standing orders are clear in terms of being repetitious. But I want to take it further, Mr. Speaker, for him to accuse me of writing a Facebook post that we are fundraising is totally frivolous, It is frivolous and downright lied. I ask him to retract that back, Mr. Speaker. I ask him to retract that statement. I want him to produce the statement. I have never posted anything on fundraising for Toledo West. So please, for him to retract that statement.
Mr. Speaker, let me clarify, my good friend from Toledo West. I did not say that you posted anything. I said in Toledo West, and I mentioned the member from Toledo West, that I see that the PUPs are trying to raise funds, raise resources. I did not say the member from Toledo West. I said in the member's constituency. Stop trying to distract me. Make we get back to Dr. Martinez and the dark ages of Toledo West and Toledo East, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Martinez is not even here, and I've never heard him say such thing.
Mr. Speaker,
I could come here and say, I kind of think that
Mr.
people say about him.
Mr. Speaker, I have the video
man.
footage. Everybody say, Dr. Martinez, Mr. Speaker. But
Accept
Mr.
what Juliet
Speaker,
is saying about you.
but Mr.
You
Speaker,
accept what Juliet is saying
but
about
Mr.
you?
Speaker,
Are you accepting what Juliet says about you?
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's not allowed to stand up and interrupt me, Mr. Speaker.
But can you finish up
You
now,
see,
Leader of the
want
Opposition?
democracy, you want a strong opposition, but one member got all our up in arms. Allow me to have my peace. It's 26 of you. It's 26 of you. It's 26 of you, and you can't allow one member. Let me speak. Philip Gorson used to be up here and talk forever. I have a right to speak on behalf of the people. I am not speaking on behalf of myself. I am speaking on behalf of the people in Toledo. Sir, stop trying to divide and conquer. Relax yourself. But yes, Mr. Speaker, as I said, over the last several weeks, due to the inadequate response from the People's United Party, you have men and women and children fighting shoulder to out these fires, Mr. Speaker, and it really should not be. While the Prime Minister and his ministers, they go on the Astrom private helicopter, I don't know who paid for that. I was actually on the ground.
See, you're going,
Mr. Speaker, I was actually on the ground with my party chairman, the Honorable Senator, with my zone coordinator, Ashton Mackenzie, with my standard bearer, Dennis Williams, and Alfonso Sanchez, who will beat you in the next general elections, Mr. Speaker. We were on the ground, Mr. Speaker, and the situation is dire, Mr. Speaker, and we are calling on the government to take swift action, Mr. Speaker. We need to see policies implemented, Mr. Speaker, that will allow a government to respond immediately to these emergencies, Mr. Speaker. It should not be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and nobody from Human Development has gone down there. It should not be a month, and nobody from the Ministry of Housing has gone down there. I heard the learned member from Belize Rural South run through a disaster risk management report. Nothing in there. $500,000. How is that $500,000 going to be spent? Break it down. Let us know where the people that lost their homes, where the people that lost their crops. Let us know where they should go, Mr. Speaker. We hope that information will be forthcoming, Mr. Speaker, because people need help in Toledo East and Toledo West. And again, I am merely calling Dr. Martinez's name because he's telling you that they need help. So bring the people out of the dark ages. You know, Bob Marley has a song called So much has been said, but so little has been done. And that perfectly captures the People's United Party. Do more, say less. The people in Toledo deserve better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from... I
Thank you,
recognize the Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really, if you could take off your mic, Leader of the Opposition, I have a lot more respect for the Leader of the Opposition if he was not here grandstanding, if you come with some real points on what is it that has to be done or needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, he knows he could pick up the phone and call me, and I always respond to his calls, and he could have found out what we've been doing. The Minister has just informed this Honorable House all the work that this government has been doing trying to fight these forest fires, not only in the Toledo district, but also in the Kaya district. If he would to appreciate the work that we've been doing, Mr. Speaker, I think I could have more respect for his presentation. But what gets to me, what galls me, Mr. Speaker, when he said about us not being doing anymore, about having fair houses in every single village. He himself knows that that is not a realistic plan. But if we need to ask, when, before this government came in, when was the last fire truck bought by the government of Belize? 13 years under UDP, they never buy one single fire truck. None. Yes. Yeah, they sold the fire station. And now, wait man, hold on man. Listen. No, listen. No, I'm talking about now. I am talking about now. The point we need to make is to remind you, I never heard you when you were the music ambassador and when your father was in government ever talking about, there were always forest fires. In 2013, we had a massive firefight, a massive forest fire in the mountain Parridge. Did I ever hear you get up and say, what about the assets and what about these fire trucks? Your government never bought a single fire truck when you were there. We have bought fire trucks.
42B,
we have brought in fire trucks. Fortunately, the Minister is not here right now from Sustainable Development. Could tell you how many fire trucks we don't get since we have been in government. Listen, Mr. Speaker, ask. We have this issue with water. When was the last water well rig bought by the government of Belize? 24 years ago by a PUP government. Right now we're investing over $3 million to buy a new water rig, well rig. And then you come and talk about these things that we are not doing anything. If you would have asked, we could answer you. What have we been doing? Mr. Speaker, NEMO has been on the ground, so is the Forestry Department, so are the people from Housing, so are the people from Human Development. Every member, so is the Minister on the ground, which is all, everybody is on the ground right now, including Ministry of Agriculture, yes. Every ministry. We don't take picture, we do the work. We getting the work. Mr. Speaker, what did the government did yesterday? We haven't gotten a full report on what all is going to be needed. So we did not come with a supplementary budget today. You know why? Because we don't get one full estimate as to what is it that we're going to do. Now if you may ask, I could tell you and I will explain to you. We have immediately said, we're going to use the contingency fund. There's a $5 billion contingency fund in the budget, the national budget. So I said, we are going to use immediately $1 million just to be able to meet what we need right now. We know we have to come with a 6-month plan for food. Could I finish, man? Wait, man. Can you shut up for a minute? Can you please shut up? That's your problem. That's what parliamentary behavior on your part. Mr. Speaker, can you please talk to the Leader of the Opposition, sir?
Leader of the Opposition for the last time, please. 42B.
So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to explain is that this government, from day one, We have been working over there. We don't take pictures. We're out there to get the work done. We have, you talk about fire assets, what, the air assets? We can't afford the air assets, but what? We have been working with Ashram, and Ashram has been we're using the air assets in one song so sophisticated. Well, we use the air asset that we have available, and we've been fighting these fires using the air assets. But you come and make yourself from, I would not say. But we are using the air assets. If you ask, you never may look like that, my brother. What have we done also? BCOL has been out there working with us. BL has been working with us. The BDF has been working with us. The U.S. government, we've gone to them. The Red Cross, IDB, CABE, everybody is on board. IDB has already approved some monies. I don't have the exact money. Several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what we have done, as always, we asked IDB to work with Red Cross. So by this coming week, what I have, the discussion I had now with my CEO, Nara Garcia, just this morning, she said, well, we are going to suggest to, where we're going to ask the cabinet, the financial secretary to advance some monies to Red Cross so that they could go on the ground immediately. And when they get the money from IDB, then they could refund it back to the government. This is an action. This is not profiling. CABE has already said they're going to approve, I think, about another $1 million US for us to be able to assist the people that are being affected by fire. But you come here and try to profile. And all you're doing is showing to the country that you are simply not prepared to lead because you don't know what's going on. And that's the truth. There are so much more that I could say, but we have our young students here. We don't want to give a bad example to them. So I am going to be kind to the leader of the opposition. And I will give him one piece of advice. When you don't know, shut up and go and ask questions to the relevant authorities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the member from Corozal North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to cordially salute the students that we have present here at the galleries this morning. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring a matter of urgent national importance, and it has to do with sugar, or I should say the scarcity thereof. Mr. Speaker, Belize is a country that in the region is more than self-sufficient in sugar. As a matter of fact, both mills, Santander and BSI-ASR, Belize produces annually around some 160,000 to 180,000 tons of cane. The local consumption of sugar per year varies around 13,000 to 17,000 tons of sugar. This is about 8 to 12% of the annual production. About 8, if we want to round it off, some 80-85% of what we produce in country is destined to the export market.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 12.8, I move that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour though opposed.
Honorable members, the question is that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any other hour though opposed. All those in favor, kindly say aye. All those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, while Belize has a surplus of sugar, as it represents the consumption locally, and we're speaking both for plantation white and brown sugar, there is a serious crisis out there. It cannot be that we live in a country, and I may speak for the constituency and for the districts that I come from in the north, where all around you see sugar cane. And yet, when you want to buy sugar for the consumption of families, for the small businesses, for the single mother who produces candies, for those small bakers who want to produce bread with sugar, and for all those other businesses that see themselves affected by this scarcity, you can't get any. It has reached to the point, Mr. Speaker, that if you want to buy sugar, it's ration. They want to sell you sugar probably one pound, 2 pound, 3 pound the most. And if it is that you have a need for extra sugar, it comes at an additional price. So that if we're speaking about sugar having a controlled price, all of what the government has done is really futile. It cannot be that we're in a country that we just can't get sugar. What this actually is creating is a scarcity locally, and we all know that whenever there is any scarcity of any particular product, what is the trickling effect? The price will go up. So that if we're saying as a government, we have a controlled price for sugar, both for plantation white and brown sugar, then the purpose really is meaningless. And what makes matter worse, Mr. Speaker, we have some very reliable reports about our law enforcement officers who are doing an excellent job at our borders, that at countless occasions have intercepted sugar being, and I will call it unofficially exported, rather not to call it contraband, just to get a call from ministerial intervention indicating to them, look, you have to release that sugar because this particular person has a permit to export. A permit accordingly, and I'm not making any accusations, member from Orange Rock South, but they're saying that they have an export permit from Baja. In those circumstances, all the law enforcement officers have to do is give back that sugar. Before their eyes, they're seeing that sugar being contrabanded either into Mexico or Guatemala, and there is nothing else that we can do. Yet, when Ms. Betty wants to do her candies in order for her to be able to provide for her children, she cannot get sugar in country. This is untenable. This cannot continue, and this must be addressed. The solution is rather simple. Two things. We either increase the price of sugar so as not to make it as attractive and lucrative, so that the people who get this sugar, who are hoarding the sugar, don't contraband the sugar, or we either get serious and have our law enforcement officers do their job without any kind of ministerial or cabinet intervention. Look, in Pachacan, and I will speak for Pachacan, I could go around any shop in Pachacan, and if there are 2 or 3 shops that I could get sugar from, it's a lot. That's the situation. You can get Coke, which makes it, which is another product that needs a lot of sugar. I would suppose that the scarcity of Coke in this country, Coca-Cola in this country, could be a direct result of the scarcity of sugar. But this is the situation. Mr. Speaker, all I'm asking the government is to intervene in ways that could alleviate the situation. We all know who the players are. The general populace in this country know who are the businesses or who are the people who are hoarding sugar. If the locals know who are the players taking sugar across Mexico and into Guatemala, it cannot be that our law enforcement don't know. They are doing a great job at intercepting the sugar, but if they are not allowed to operate in a manner that is independent and allow them to do their job, then this situation will only get worse. I am only saying at this point in time, as a sugarcane farmer, I don't support at this point in time any increase in the price of sugar, because it's going to hit, Mr. Speaker, the poorest in this country. It's going to hit those socially marginalized people in our sector, in our society. And at this point in time, I don't think that the increase of price of sugar is an option that we want to consider. From a point of view of production, the cost thereof which has increased exponentially, it's easily justifiable. You see what happens with corn, prices has gone up. You see what happens with poultry, prices have gone up. Any other grain, prices have gone up. Meat, for instance, it has gone up. When you ask the farmers, why is it that poultry and meat and grains have gone up in this country? It's simple. The cost of production has gone up. No farmer will produce a product and not make any profit out of it. Yet, you hear the general sentiment of the cane farmers. They are willing to sacrifice the underpayment, if I may call it, of sugar locally, because there are people who consider the rest of society. But it cannot be that you're asking the farmers, look, sugar has to be controlled because we don't want the cost of living to ignite. Yet those in charge really aren't doing their part. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask those present to look. It's simple. Go around the businesses, go around the people, and you guys know exactly who it is that's exporting, and if I may call it contraband sugar. And secondly, if we allow our officers to do their job, this crisis will come to an end. In the event that this does not happen, Mr. Speaker, it's simple. BSI has indicated that they have increased the supply of sugar in this country. They could triplicate it. Right now we're speaking about 13 to 14,000 or probably 16,000 tons of sugar locally. They could increase that to 30,000. The situation will not improve because our borders are so porous, so that whatever increase in sugar is, whatever supply of sugar is made locally, automatically that will go across the border. This is something very serious, and I wish that the present administration would take a serious look at this particular issue. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Orange Walk South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Corozal North for his intervention. He has a very valid concern, and it's a similar concern that we on this side have. The truth of the matter, and before I forget, member, Baja does not issue permits for export of sugar. Supplies control issues permit for sugar. And as far as I can remember from my director's update, there are only 3 people that have applied in the past for export permits. BSI, Santander, another individual who had tried a shipping to the Caribbean. Those are the 3 that I can remember, 3 or 4, not more than that. So Baja does not give export permits, it is supplies control. In 2014 was the last time that the price of sugar was raised in the country. And the demand came from the farmers and BSI. However, I would say, as it is right now, the increase in the price was not studied thoroughly and did not allow for those who are in the business of sugar to benefit from much profits. And I'll explain this to you. The price today for brown sugar at the mill is 34 cents a pound. 34 cents a pound. The same brown sugar, or similar brown sugar, in Mexico is right now at $1.70 a pound. The same sugar that we are practically giving away at 34 cents, the mill. But the price control for that same sugar in Belize is 39 cents. So the wholesaler or the person who buys only have 5 cents to play with. There was no consideration for wholesaler, retailer to make profit. So if you are a businessman in Toledo and you want to sell sugar in Toledo, you come to the mill, you pay $34 for the sack of 100 pounds, and then you drive back to PG and sell it at 39 cents a pound. You need to pay for your fuel. You need to pay for your loading and unloading. So there was no increase so that the wholesaler could say, okay, I take it to Toledo and then I distribute to the stores, and the stores sell it at the stores have to sell at 29 cents maximum, not more. So the wholesaler and the retailer have to see how they divide that 5 cents. For white sugar, it was from 67 right now, and the maximum control price is 75 cents. That's 8 cents. So what happens? It is easier for a wholesaler to come to the mill, pay 34 cents, and halfway down the road, you meet a truck with Guatemala license plate, and all they do is unload and sell that same sugar which he bought for 34 cents at $1 per sack. So while I agree with the member that we don't want to raise the price just to raise price sake, we are a government that has a social conscience. But right now, the situation, we don't live in an island. The situation in Mexico is such that 4 mills have closed down because of the lack of available labor. Those mills have closed down. The price of sugar in Mexico right now is at its highest. The plantation with sugar right now is at $1.80 a pound. We are at 75 cents. So there's an incentive, there's desire there to, as you said, we have porous borders. Now, the second thing important here, Mr. Speaker, is that the government doesn't sell sugar. There's one entity or two who sell sugar, one that sells local, BSI. And they have a list, which I forwarded to you already, remember, of all the wholesalers that they sell sugar to. Now, what we did, supplies control, we went to these stores individually and said, where do you buy this sugar from? And they said, I buy it from this. We checked the lists that BSI gave us, and it's there, very few of them. But there are huge buyers whose names we have never seen on a receipt selling to a store. Right? So these people must be selling their sugar somewhere, but not to the stores in the country. So supplies control now is targeting those who receive sugar from the mill but have no evidence of selling it in the stores. So the only way we believe that we can reduce the amount of sugar leaking to Mexico and to Guatemala is to find a way to increase the price, the control price, but it has to be based on facts and numbers that we are given. In 2014, you remember, because we served the association at the same time, they presented to us a rationale. Why is it that they want to increase from this price to this price, right? Today, we are seeking the same information so that we can see what is the cost of production today. The cost of production have gone up for everything across the world, for every single thing, corn, rice, beans, everything. But for sugarcane, for sugar, it has not increased to meet the farmers' high costs. The farmers are sacrificing, actually they are subsidizing. But they have said to us, we want you to raise the price to this amount. And we are saying, hold on, you have to justify to us how have you come up with that price. Because, I mean, any company, they want to raise the price to the sky. We are saying no. And so we have been doing several exercises to see where is it. And it doesn't matter, remember, Mr. Speaker, how high we raise the price. We have to base our increase on the cost of production, not on what the price is being sold in Mexico and Guatemala. Because we can't reach that limit. Not because there are $2 in Mexico, we're going to $1.95. No, we cannot do that. Our justification for the increase has to be based on cost of production in Belize. So even if we raise the price, for argument's sake, to $1 or 95 cents, and the retail is maybe at 120, 115, the sugar will still find itself across the border because there is $2 a pound. So we have to manage that. How do we manage? The borders are porous. And I will say this. I have never called anybody to release sugar. There is no export permit for sugar. So they cannot say that this man have a permit, you can go. There is none. Only 3 to 4 persons have received in the past export permits. But so we are right now working with BSI, Supplies Control, the Sugar Board, to see where we can reach a decent price, one that will not make the lives of Belizeans more difficult. We are a government with a social conscience. So whatever cost increase we may have to decide that, it has to be well justified. And that this discussion has taken place in Cabinet for more than one session, believe me. But until we are comfortable that the Belizean people will still be able to buy their sugar, until we are comfortable that the farmers are getting a fair price to meet their costs, then Cabinet will decide. As a matter of fact, in 2 weeks, we will make a thorough presentation in Cabinet with all the numbers to see where is it that we must have the price of sugar. It is a valid concern. Member, and to add to this, and that is the reason why Prime Minister and myself in Mexico City have been negotiating with the Mexican government. The Mexicans have a huge shortfall of sugar this year. Some of their mills have closed down. They have a serious labor shortage like we do right now. And the future price for them seems to be going up. So we have, and the Prime Minister has led this discussion with the President of Mexico, asking them to kindly consider if we could export our sugar to them. Of course, the tariff on sugar, member, is very high. I think it's 8 pesos for a kilogram of sugar. If you want to export a kilogram of sugar, it's 8 pesos, $1.25, I think, for a kilogram. So it's excessive high. So we cannot compete unless the government of Mexico is kind to us and say, I will give you a quota of 20,000 tons. That may help us a little. And a very important point you made, member, we have discussed this at length with the technocrats in the ministry. Should we then encourage ASR to produce or make more sugar available locally? Our consumption right now annually is like 11,000 tons locally. So some have said, listen, why don't we ask them to produce 22,000 tons, right? But at an increased price, if you increase the price, then the numbers, and we're looking at the numbers right now, then the cost, because sugar produced locally don't have much export costs. We don't have local handling costs. We don't have ocean freight. So if you remove those costs, then it may be looking better for the farmers. But again, as you said, we have porous borders, and it may find itself across the border. I mean, we have the same problem with many, many things, right? And so we are studying it. We are working. I have people working on it right now. And we believe that in 2 weeks we will have a very good position exactly on where we want the price to be. And we want that the farmers benefit, but we also want that the consumers be taken into consideration. We cannot just raise the price to reach the price as Mexico and Guatemala. That will never be the case, not in Belize, not under this government. So we are doing our best to contain this problem. But remember, it was a valid concern, and like I said, we are working on it.
Mr. Speaker, I now adjourn.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. All those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The House now stands on adjournment.